Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And let me introduce you to none other than Lady Audacity Montague. Right, I'm really going to get out of that voice now. Thanks, everyone. welcome, one and all, to another Doctor Who review. And today is the box set Audacity. Yes, Audacity. A brand new Doctor Who companion who was introduced quite recently to the Doctor. Now, in this range, there are two stories. One being the story, The Devourer, and the other being the Cyberwar. Now, the Devourer is a very interesting companion introduction, as it's not a normal one. It's not one where it's a coincidence or crossing the street or something like that, or not even a historical accident, but indeed the Devourer is more of a question of what would happen if you wished upon a star, and what would happen if that star caused consequences. And so Audacity looks up to the sky one night looking through her telescope, and in doing so she begins to have a wish, but she doesn't think that this wish is going to become true, and sadly in her case it does. The wish comes true, and this creature from beyond the stars starts haunting her in her dreams, in her memories, in her mind. And all it can keep saying is, "I will devour you." That was my impression of it. "I will devour you." And so the Doctor, of course, intervenes because he knows that it's not her fault and it's a easy accident that could happen to anyone. Audacity has a party and begins to rob her guests, along with the help of her husband. As the story progresses, we find out that Audacity was in a very poor situation, but the only way that she could go up in the world and get a good education and have all the opportunities that she gets in life is mainly due to her husband being willing to marry her and help her status quo in her period of time. The Doctor obviously marvels at her husband as he seems to be not all too there, and finds it amazing that Audacity puts up with him. But nonetheless, they get back to the problem at hand. Audacity has to sacrifice herself to allow all of her maids, all of her butlers, everyone who works in her house, and all her family members, and everyone who was attending the party to finally be freed from the clutches of this devourer. But this in turn costs her very, very much. By giving herself up to this creature, she also gives up the life that she could live, happier days that will never come. And now the Doctor has no choice but to take her with him. A sacrifice that she didn't realise would cost even the love of her husband. The Doctor takes her back one last time to see her husband, just to say goodbye, but then he points out that they can't stay very long because the Devourer will not allow her to go back to her place and time in history, and that wherever she goes, wherever she is, it will be not far behind. The second story, The Cyberwar, is a very interesting story because we don't often get to look into the depths of the Cyberwar and what the cause and the effect are. As the Doctor and his friend get trapped within a assassination attempt, they begin to discover that Cybermen have been called by a very hungry and desperate young lady who comes from the planet below. She calls the Cybermen in hope that they will help restore the planet to its former glory. But instead, they decide to take over and decide that they would like to conquer the planet below. Meanwhile, at the space station, a scientist is manufacturing a way to destroy the Cybermen once and for all. The Doctor begins to be curious to this scientist's invention, and so He makes his presence known, and the two discuss the possibilities of the weapons that are being created. To the Doctor's horror, he discovers a golden Cyberman within the scientist's chamber. In the second half of this story, the Doctor realizes that the gold didn't destroy the Cyberman at all. Instead, it just made him feel pain, lots and lots of pain. The Doctor then begins to question the concept of whether the gold affects the Cybermen at all, whether they're truly allergic to it. And soon enough, he learns from the scientist that that is not true. They're not really allergic to it, but the weapons that have been manufactured have tricked their systems into believing that they are allergic to it, causing them to combust. The scientist and the Doctor begin to debate about the ethics of whether his work is really worth it, especially knowing the fact that in the future, the weapons could be useless. After the death of the scientists, one of the species from below gets back onto the space station, and as the Cybermen begin to jettison his people, he decides to use a weapon to destroy them once and for all, especially after the death of his own mother. The Doctor feels helpless knowing that he is being given a most impossible decision, a decision he wishes he never had to make. Rather than destroy the weapon, he decides to speed up the process, in turn turning him into a monster just as bad as the Cybermen. The Doctor points out to Audacity at the end of the story that their efforts may have been for naught, especially as he knows that the Cyber War is only a snag in their great ascension, and that the Cybermen will go on to create more horrors even after the war is over. Audacity and the Doctor decide to go and visit Charlie Pollard at a monastery after the events of this story. The Doctor needs a bit of a break, a bit of a letdown, let his hair go, just so he can accept the consequences of his action during this part of the Cyber War. Another great factor into this story is the planet below, which has also been used in Return of the Cybermen and many other Cybermen stories, is a planet made of gold, and the creatures below all use gold. As an effect of the events of this story, they have to go underground to stop themselves from being attacked by the radiation change that was made by using the weapons. The Doctor gives them enough gold to live, but knows that the species will never be the same ever again. So this Audacity box set, The Devourer and the Cyber War. Well, what did I think about it in general? Well, as I said at the start of the video, we don't know much about the Cyber War. We know very little when it comes to canon, on screen, and as a whole when it comes to some of these audios, but I like that they're trying to fill in the pieces at Big Finish. Especially as there most probably is expanded media in books, but other than that, to everyone else's knowledge, it is very hit and miss, hit and there, and even Ascension of the Cyber War only gives you Cybermen only gives you the carcasses of the Cybermen, doesn't explain how they ended up in the vastities of space. Although, of course, if you've watched my recent video about the Sword of Ion, I think we kind of got an answer to how that happened. But yeah, back in turn, I like the consequence, though, of really showing why the Doctor hates the Cyber War. We know he hates the Cybermen as it is. He hates what they've become, what they are turning into, and what they have done to other species. But especially in this moment, we really get to see his distrust and disdain for them. As for the Devourer story, I really like the concept of be careful what you wish for, and how it really makes you start to think, if you look out your window and see a star, what says they're not looking back at you, and what says that just because you are fascinated by what is out there in the stars doesn't always mean it's a good thing. Now, overall, because of the way that the story ran and the way that things go in this story, I'm going to give Audacity a solid 9 out of 10. My reasoning for giving it a 9 out of 10 is the opening to this box set was absolutely flying. The only problem I found is the first half of the Cyber War story. I really wanted more Cybermen, if I'm perfectly honest. I get that they're not in the story straight away. I get that they were in the background. I get that they're watching and no one believes that they're there. But I really wish that they'd been at least in like the first part of the first tape somewhere. Even if it was like little dialogue of them like listening into intercoms. But the second half was brilliant. Although pacing wise, I felt like towards the end of the story they kind of got what the Cybermen were doing, whereas at first it just seemed like they were attacking Space Station 4 just to attack it. But when they start to call the Doctor's bluff and start to eject people, I really love that consequence, and it really makes you think about the harsh decisions that he has had to be going through and had to really think about over the years, and how it really has changed him as a person. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you in another Doctor Who review. Until then, goodbye and stay beautiful.